Well, welcome to the Dallas Film Podcast. My name is Tony Armour. I am the Dallas Film Commissioner.
My name is Andrew Vella. I do stuff for the Dallas Film Commission.
He does stuff for
I
the
do
Dallas
stuff
Film Commission.
like podcast stuff.
Yeah,
And we've got a great guest today. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes.
Hi. I'm Cooper Carr. I am a location manager, location scout here in the DFW area. And thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cooper, I want to start very basic.
Okay.
What is a location manager? What's the difference between a manager and a scout? And how did you even fall into this?
Okay. Well, I'll do it as a metaphor first.
Yeah, I asked you like 5 questions.
No,
I'm sorry.
that's completely fine. That's completely fine. It always what like crops up because in my job I have to explain what I do to every single homeowner, every single business owner, like because it's such an odd thing.
Yeah.
So I consider myself like a canvas maker is kind of like how I see it as because my job is to find places which work for people or for like creatives and what have like directors and DPs and producers and all that kind of thing. You have 3 different categories of people you have to satisfy. You have like the creative possibilities versus like the actual respecting to budget possibilities as well. And so my job is simply to find a place that fulfills a creative need for somebody as well as like a logistical need at the same time. Because sometimes things will work then, but not later. And so my job is just to find something as well as, things such as discussing payment, figuring out, logistics of the area, also how to, make nice with the people who are nearby. You might have one business that's totally open to it and you have another business that is not open to it at all. And you run into those kinds of things and you have to deal with people's egos, and it's a very people business. It's like the most like 1930s job that you could possibly imagine. People are like, how do you do it? Like, are you online? Is it like some software? I'm like, I walk up to the business and I knock on the door and I dress nicely and I am a palatable person. And you're like, that's kind of it. So so I just find the place, discuss negotiations and everything in terms of like money and time and everything like that, as well as tame the beast that is production. I always define production as just this like, ever hungry maw that's never satisfied with like the location. And they always want more and more and more and more. And it's just kind of my job in a way to be like the, middleman in a way to make sure that the location is respected and that the location stays safe because it's such a delicate balance because on a production, they want to extract all the value that location has. And your job as location manager also is to maintain a positive working relationship with them because you want to be able to return to that location and make sure that they feel respected, that the place is nice and nothing gets dented or broken, et cetera, et cetera. And if something does that you have to sit there with them and be like, hey, so there's a hole in your wall
couch.
Because $10,000 couch. I've had driveways that had olive oil spilt on it, but it was like a driveway that was made out of pavers that were unsealed, and you have to hire a heated power washer guy or something to come out, and so then you have to go do that and blah 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 blah. So there's a whole variety of things that you have to do in the background. So that's kind of the gist of like what a location manager does, and then like a location scout, you just find things. But typically, if you are a location scout, you usually are also the location manager at the same time. So it's just kind of going from finding a place to then securing that place and like protecting it. And that can be just from being like the on-set cop in a way where you're just kind of constantly watching people. Because if you don't, I remember one time I had some out-of-towners come in and I looked over and there was an art director and he was spraying a whole bunch of lighter fluid over that same concrete with all the pavers and everything like that. I was like, guys, put down a tarp, like if you're going to have any kind of petroleum-based product. And they're like, yeah, totally.
Sure we are.
I go set out some cones for like, letting some people park. I come back and I see an art director and he's like just spraying this bottle into like charcoal that's like on fire. And you can just see this raining of like, petroleum product and whatnot all over these like pavers. And I was like, no. And then they had like the food stylist, God bless them, they had this, to make meat look like very succulent and like savory, they soak it in olive oil. It's like one of the trade secrets. Sorry. But and they tripped and like it was a whole platter of olive oil went on that unsealed pavers. And so it was like kind of up to me now, to where it's like this guy was a veteran. He was a lawyer. Just like that's the double combination. And I was actually location managing a location for another location manager, Aaron Holloway. And so, like, you really want to make sure that you take care of the whole situation to show that, you get that kind of, respect going on because, like, you are hired by, word of mouth 99% of the time. But, and you also asked how I got into it. So I studied film and marketing at UNT, go Eagles and all that jazz. But, and I started out trying to get, break into the film industry, being a PA and getting $85 a day, $125 a day for like reality TV shows, with like a car that was like would stall if I like was idling too long. I remember it was so rough. It was so rough starting out, and I couldn't hang. I could not hang in it. I had student debt that needed to be paid. I had rent that needed to be paid.
Well, reality TV, I mean, to start in general. Like, if you've been doing it 20 years, you're still making $125 a day in reality TV. Like, it pays horrible.
It's a tough. Reality TV is a tough one to break into, and it's probably the most like chaotic one too. Like and I just couldn't hang in that kind of environment, just because I didn't know how to like really tap into it. I didn't know about like the Dallas Film Commission. I didn't know about like production directories or anything like that. And so I was just kind of sitting there, twiddling my thumbs, hoping that someone would call me to be a PA, and I just wasn't making money for it. So I started working on the marketing side because I double majored in both marketing and film, thinking that would help me like with commercials, and because I was going to be a commercial director. and I wound up working in the advertising world for a good while, like almost like 8 years. And I was miserable for all of it. I was miserable for all of it. I was a sales guy for like business to business, like digital, like, publishing and everything like that. Hated that. But it does have a good circle around though. So, but yeah, kept on doing that. And then like lo and behold, there was 11/22/63, that Hulu show that came and shot here in Dallas because it was a JFK thing, and they were shutting down Dealey Plaza. John Mitchell, who is a location manager here in Dallas, was just by chance my sister's neighbor, and they were needing a locations assistant. And luckily at the time, I'd been with the company for like 3-4 years at that period of time in my life. And I think I accrued like 3 weeks of PTO. And I heard about this opportunity. I had no idea what locations was, but I was like, this is my chance. This is my chance to like to kind of like solidify something, to prove something. And and so I came on board, did 3 weeks and everything like that, worked on the show. And I remember like I had a Fitbit, was like putting in 60,000 steps a day. I remember I cried one day because like I was like, was wearing like those like minimus kind of like low flows. And I was like, going back and forth between Dealey Plaza and like underneath 35, and my feet were just aching. And I remember just like one day just like legitimately weeping because my feet hurt so bad. But I loved it though. Like I loved like the mission, like critical, like kind of function of everything, like how necessary you felt in every single thing. Like even if it was minor, like getting waters for everybody, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make these people pee their pants. Like they're gonna be so tired of me like handing them waters kind of thing. But it felt nice going from a corporate world where you were just a cog in a machine to where it's like you feel very replaceable. Whereas if you are gone on set for an hour, it immediately mucks up the works. And it's like, and everyone
People
is
like, where is he?
And that's the nice part about it. It's like everyone is so mission critical on every little aspect of it, from like the smallest little PA to the biggest like EP, and I really like that. And then going the contrast of it all, going from that mission criticality to I had to go back to my job. And I remember just like sitting there, just like I hated my life. I hated my life so much, like my work life.
When you had to be like, how do I get back to that?
Well, and that was a tough thing too, because like locations is not easy to come up in, because locations more than often, in Dallas specifically, because we're primarily like a commercial kind of space, that it's just me. Like a location manager, I rarely have an assistant. Other location managers rarely have assistants, and so it's hard to bring somebody up, to have an assistant come in and to work real often. And so that was kind of difficult, but I jumped essentially every single year. I would take around 2.5 weeks off to 3 weeks off to work on some kind of tentpole project. And that was Aaron Holloway, who I met on 11/22/63. And he was like, hey, like, he works really hard. Anytime that there's like a big tentpole project, like I'm gonna have him on. So like that was essentially my life for a couple of years. I was only working in the film world for 3 weeks at a time.
Oh wow!
For a year, and
That's
I would
crazy.
all of my vacation time was spent working.
Wow.
On 12-hour days, 16-hour days on set, getting like trash juice on me and everything. But like I loved it. Like I loved it. And I remember, like, Aaron brought me on for the X-Men series that, like, piloted out here.
Gifted.
Yeah, Gifted. And, so anytime that would happen, I always loved it to where I was like, you get in locations, you just get to see these, like, really magical, weird spaces that nobody really gets to see, to where it's like, oh, yeah, this is where, like, the sheeting for the B-2 bomber or B-2 stealth bomber was manufactured, where that was, like, at Global International, where we shot some of the X-Men things like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you just see flipping cars and like, all this other cool stuff. Compare that to a cubicle.
Yeah.
Like a cubicle and an Excel doc and, filling out like client notes and being beholden to clients and like really always like, and someone always taking like your credibility for you and everything like that it was so great to have that like in the film world. And so finally, and so to kind of get into like where it became like much more full-time, I go to Nashville in like 2018, something like that, went there for love. And I was just like, everything's going to be fine. And I was like, I'm leaving my entire social network and my entire like professional network behind. Like, what's the worst that could happen? You can burn through all of your savings, accumulate $10,000 in credit card debt, and completely lose yourself as a person. But I remember... it was 12 Mighty Orphans started shooting. And I remember like this was like always a thing. And I was always bugging Aaron Holloway about it because he was like, yeah, we're going to put you on. And I was like, hey, there's this thing. Cause I wasn't getting any film work in Nashville. I thought Nashville, like there would be this like more opportunity, like country music kind of stuff. But because it's so close, like it's 3.5 hours from Atlanta, it was just like everyone just worked in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So this like idea that I had was not working. And I went back to Dallas, did that. Awesome experience doing 12 Mighty Orphans and moved back to Dallas. Relationship didn't work out. That's okay. But, and I moved back at the beginning of like January of 2020. And like
great timing.
Cruel Summer was about to begin, an Amazon show I was about to hop on. And I was like, okay, like I'm broke beyond broke. I'm living above a garage in like, a studio apartment. Like, it's okay. Like, don't worry. Like, things are going to be fine. And like you said, COVID-19 happens. Boom, all of my opportunities just evaporate just right in front of me. And I was just terrified beyond belief. Then shortly thereafter, my mom passed away. And like, and it's like still to this day, we don't know if it was like COVID or not kind of thing. So it was just still so early on. It was like February. And so I was just like, jobless, like freshly kind of like, dealing with a big loss and everything like that. But it was kind of this nice moment in the fact that the world did stop. Like there wasn't any expectations. And I was just like, you know what? Like, I think like everything that everything is going to be restarting effectively in the whole like Dallas world as far as like the film industry goes. And I was just like, sit in this chair until you make like an entire like location manager like and film scout website. And I remember I sat at a chair. And it was crazy. Like, I mean, it's just like, I've got the ADHD and whatnot. And I was like, come on, hyperactivity and like singular focus. We're just going to do this. And I remember like I would kind of, because this was always something I wanted to do, but never did. But anytime I had like a hiccup on it or like, some part of the website wasn't working, I was like, let's go to YouTube. Like, let's figure this out. Some 9-year-old kind of helped me explain it. And I remember I just bing, bang, boom, started doing it. And because of COVID, I kind of like did a little bit of a fake it till you make it kind of situation where I started just reaching out to businesses and everything. I was like, well, because of COVID-19, like my inventory has really changed. Mind you, I had 0 people. And I was just like, hey, would you like to be open to this? And so I started meeting with, hotels. I started meeting with like, homeowners and everything like that. And I was like, hey, like, I'm like, I'll wear a mask and do all these other kinds of things. Just like, let me please scout it. And at the same time, though, when you're saying, hey, like $3,000 for using your home for a commercial at a time of kind of economic, like, turmoil that was 2020, like it was tempting to a lot of people. And so I started, kind of making my own luck in that respect. And I just kind of realized that I was just like, because that's what I've always admired about the location world is that it is so gumption based, and that's what always really attracted me to it because, you know, like I said, I was a PA. It's like, okay, you become a PA, and then you become a truck PA, and then you become a coordinator, and then you become like, you know, a coordinator's assistant, and then you become like, you know, you try to, you know, become an assistant to the PM, and then you get to be the PM, which is so heavily guarded and everything like that. And it seems like it's
PM as in production.
Yeah, production manager. Yeah. And it's just so hard to like, there's so many rungs to that ladder. And you have to like know the right people and be likable and everything like that. And I was just like, what's something that I can climb that I know that is just, you know, just totally based off of like my own work. And it's not this like, you know, who you know kind of thing. I don't like that kind of gameplay. That's what I hated in the corporate world is I hated the whole like social aspect and like having to, you know, be chummy and whatnot and like to try to like grease the cogs to work in your kind of favor. And I'm like, bro, and I'm like, can I just work and be just be recognized for my work kind of thing without having to like, you know, grease palms and everything like that. And I remember I was just like, okay, like what's next? And I was like, find PMs and just start emailing PMs and being like, hey, like I found like a new house, like here's pictures of this house. And I was like, this is weird. Like some PMs were like, who are you? I was just like, I'm a location manager, blah, 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 blah. And I remember my friend, like Aaron Holloway, my other friend, like Jennifer Leffler, like they helped me out, like, you know, to where it's like, they're like, hey, you know, I'm triple booked on this day. Can you go watch a house for like $350 for me and like go babysit a house? Like show me that you can do that. And I was like, absolutely. And so I would make the absolute best maps and I would like live on set because I know there's kind of sometimes location managers can be kind of satellite, you know, on a set. Sometimes like they're not living on set. And I was like, okay, that'll be my differentiating factor. Like to where I will live on set. I will be heavily proactive.
Yeah, because you can be a problem solver. Because a lot of times the last thing you want is like, where's the location manager? We need some, where's he at? You know, and call in and trying to find him or whatever. But if you're already there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that was the thing is like anytime that I heard complaints about location managers that people had, like producers had or anything like that, I was like, okay, great. And I was like, that's, you know, what I'll, you know, strive on. And so, yeah, like, you know, just like you said, Tony, it's where I was like, I was always present. So someone would have to be like, where's Cooper? Like, we've called him, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I am right there, like right there on the set. I'm like, yeah, we got to just do that, move that. Or I'm working with PAs ahead of time to where it's like, hey, like, you know, scene 13A is coming up next. Like, you're going to have to go and move those things. And I know first ADs love that because they don't have to do that.
Right.
And if I can take something off of their plate, they appreciate that. So that's just kind of what I try to be as like a much more engaged, you know, overall location manager, you know, on the day and just try to live there. Now, as I've gotten more busy, I kind of understand why location managers can be that way sometimes because you're trying to put so many things in front of itself that you have another job or someone else is calling you about something. You're like, let me pull something out of my lookbook or like, let me reach out to these other clients and things of that nature. Or you're trying to, solve some kind of issue from a prior, production or something like that, trying to get like a house paid. They haven't gotten their check yet, blah, 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 blah. Which, hey, producers who are listening, always have your checks on the day for locations as we arrive. And I will make sure that you have your W-9. It's my promise to you.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really interesting talking about, locations in general. So like you said, Dallas, DFW, it's a big commercial marketplace.
Yeah.
And so what goes along with that is a lot of shooting on private property, private homes, private businesses. And oftentimes if you're approaching someone for the first time and you say, hey, we'd like to use your house as a location for this project. I know because this isn't Los Angeles or Vancouver where you have so much production happen all the time. People are sometimes like, you want to do what with my
that's a good point.
house? Like how do you approach someone and to explain, because it'd be like, you sure you're what are you making? Like sometimes people don't actually believe that you are actually doing what you say that you're.
Or they don't comprehend like there's going to be how many people here and they're shooting a movie here?
Yeah. So
they don't comprehend like the scope.
Right. Yeah. The size and scope of a production is always something that surprises most people. And that's also when I was saying that my job is essentially like 1930s and the fact that I'm just like knocking on doors. Like the first things first is like convincing people I'm not a con man.
Yes.
That like, that's why it's important just to have like a nice looking business card and a nice website and, to have like a IMDb page, something like that, LinkedIn.
Well, and what I used to do in Florida as well, and I don't think we've done it here since I've been here, but if you need it, if any location managers need it, what we used to do is we would give a letter that said, contact the Dallas Film Commission, and we will verify that this person is who that they say that they are as well. If you need that sort of thing, in the future, of course, feel free.
I definitely have had to put my license against the glass wall for them to like look at and take a photo of and like send it to another party kind of thing.
Right.
Because like sometimes it is either two versions. I have literally had someone answer their door through like a ring, kind of ring.
Yeah.
Not even home, and tells me to scout their home. And I'm just like, wow, that's like next level trust.
Right. Yeah.
Or it's like, some person will be completely alone by themselves and I can get it and they'll be like, oh yeah, sure. Like 8 seconds, like from saying like, hi, this is what I do, to being in their home. I'm just like, some people are incredibly trusting and everything like that. And they're super cool. I think they just kind of get that I feel like I appear non-threatening. But other people though too, towards they want to check me out. Like sometimes I'll send them to the directory of like the Dallas Film Commission and such like that, and be like, hey, you can see me there, or you can look me up on movies that I've done in the past.
And if you have website IMDb, that goes a long way.
Yeah. Or it's like, I'll be like, hey, reach out to Lisa Norman. Like here's a producer I worked with and everything like that, and just to kind of help validate and like legitimize who I am. But the other part too is like not only that, but I feel like because Dallas isn't so used to it, you also do have like a lot of like kind of NIMBY kind of situations a little bit, like not in my own backyard for those of you who don't know the acronym. And so, you do have to make nice with some other people, and, you do respect it as best you can, to where it's like, they're like, hey, I don't want cars parked in front of my house. And you're like, okay, well, technically it's a public parking,
right.
And I could park in front of it, but I don't want people to see a film crew and be like, those people are blah, 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 have a negative experience. So that's my other kind of like job, I feel like, as a location manager, is to have a positive working relationship with like the community of Dallas overall. Because if there's a negative, if I poison that well in a way, towards like, I heard from my neighbor that I've heard from this kind of person that, you guys are, love them and leave them as far as locations go, and you don't want that in any kind of way. Like, you want people to be like, oh, hey, like I heard you were really respectful of a home, like please come on in and, do that kind of stuff. And so like I've done before and after photos that I'll send to people who are like newbies to kind of let them know the size and scope of production. I'm like, here's the home after. We fixed everything. If you want like to reach out to Kevin, I was just like, feel free to reach out to Kevin. He can vouch for me that my JCPenney ad that I did for him that had like 100 people in his house, that it didn't damage anything. But it's also, you have to use the eyes in a way and be like, okay, like where can a dolly get in here? And so like when I walk up to a house and it's got a double swing entryway,
Brazilian teak hardwood floors.
No. I mean, it's that too. Yeah, it's 100% that too. And like you have to go out and get some plywood and get some, like I literally had to do rubber mats, plywood, and then rubber mats again to protect like a really nice tile that was on there, because we were going to be putting a fully loaded down, scoping arm dolly into a shot. And so like that dolly itself like weighed like 1,200 pounds. And you're sitting there doing math in your head and you're like, okay, that's like 300-ish pounds like per wheel. And it's like, all right, plus there's going to be like a key grip standing on that bad boy and cinematographer and everything. And you're like, okay, it's like, let's not shatter the like expensive tile. Or like I was just doing driveway.com and we had to pull a truck into a yard because I wanted it to be parallel with the house. Like, here's the home, and I wanted the truck to be there. And it's like, all right, let's get some like Duradeck. And they're like, what's Duradeck? And you're like, it's this really thick plastic that goes over like, landscape so that we don't dig into the yards or anything like that. Because I've definitely have seen productions where that happens, where, you do a car commercial or you have, some big, vehicle that's holding lights or something like that, like one of the telescoping arms that holds the lights, and then it, mucks up a whole bunch of a park or something like that. That I did a shoot at one time. I remember 12 Mighty Orphans, like we pissed off the Dallas Parks and Recreation. I mean, we fixed it. We fixed it all. But
you don't want to have to fix it, because what they remember is that you destroyed it. And that you had to fix it. Even though you fixed it, that they'll always focus on the but. You broke it first.
They do focus on. I always kind of, it's sort of the whole how you leave it kind of thing with people. Usually, if there is like an apology or something like that, I will get them like, I'm a muffin basket guy. I'll like the gentleman that I had to fix his driveway, I bought him a bottle of wine, as a thing. So I remember he mentioned that he liked red wine, and so I got him like a nice Cab Sav. It was like a $40 bottle of wine, as well as fixing it and everything like that. And he was very appreciative of that, because it's like you try to just, again, like you want to come back to that home, or you don't want that person to speak negatively to someone else about something else, because that stuff spreads. And so like that's why I just think it's like so incumbent on like location managers to be so respectful of that, because I'll say like I don't, that's not an issue as far as like the extractive kind of issue that I feel, it's not so much of an issue with like my Dallas peeps. It's more so if we have like LA peeps, like New York peeps coming in, and they just
LA
they,
people.
It's just a different mindset.
yeah,
too.
when it's like I hate to be like adversarial and be like, oh, those LA people, and it's just like we're all a bunch of misfits, like just trying to make it happen. But there is a bit more of an extractive nature because they're coming in from out of town.
Right.
They just want to use something and then they want to love it and leave it kind of thing.
Yeah, like they're not going to remember us from coming in from LA.
Exactly that. And so so that's where it's like my head is a bit more on a swivel if I got some more out of towners and everything. Like nothing against y'all, but it's just like it's like I've been burned and just like I've lost houses because of like people feeling like they got trampled on or things of that nature. But that is my role, I am a lion tamer and production is the lion.
Yeah.
And so like production, being like, hey, like, we're going to be there on a Thursday. And I'm like, oh, hey, can you make yourself available for a Thursday? Like, sure thing. Like, let me cancel my, kids soccer practice and this and this and this and this. They like the homeowner moves heaven and earth. The business owner moves heaven and earth for you. And you're like, thank you so much. And then production's like, actually, can we have that on a Wednesday? And you're just like, and it's like, because there's this weird kind of meter that people have of like the favor meter or like what you can ask from them kind of thing. And when it's filling up.
Right.
And when you hear them on the phone, they're like, and you're like, oh shit. Like,
because like, all
they
right,
are
I don't
almost
lose the kid.
done
Don't lose
with
the
me.
location. Don't lose the location.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's like, I remember on 12 Mighty Orphans, we had a moment where the lady locked all the doors and she was just like, you're not coming in. and like, and I remember like, and I don't know what was said or anything like that, but silver-tongued Aaron Holloway zipped on over there and just chatted with her for like a half hour. We got back into the location.
Oh my gosh.
Everything was fine, but it's just like, at the end of the day, the homeowners and the business owners have locks.
Yeah.
It's like you have a contract and everything like that, but it's just like, they can really, muff up your day. So it's just like, that's where it's like, again, like my job is just to smooth the edges, make things as palatable as possible, and just make people happy at the end of the day. Like if a producer or if a DP can be like, man, awesome location. We got everything that we wanted. We're so happy. That makes me so overjoyed to be able to just like, to provide that. Because I understand the stresses where like they're looking at a blank canvas, they're looking at photos, like hoping that I'm doing my due diligence, that I have a creative brain and can actually like see shots that they have, especially when I have like, I've had numerous times where it's like, I don't have any creative, I don't have a shot list. Right. And I'm just having to just like, ideate as best as I can on what the, what the location can honestly give us. And so that is something that's the fun challenge of my job. Like that's like the fun, like, creative part of my job is the fact that I do have to like get out of my own head and get into the perception of others, like in both a DP and like on a budgetary meaning, like for the producers and everything like that. And, getting things for free and everything. But 9 times out of 10, I'll say that it's great because I get to interact with so many people. Yeah. And 9 times out of 10 is the people understand what you're doing and they're kind and they work with you best that they can. And that's also like, that's the cool thing is like, I'm sitting there talking to homeowners because they have a birthday party in their backyard and their kids are screaming and like yelling and stuff and I have to go over there and have to shut down a 5-year-old's birthday party and like but while trying to be palatable and like nice the entire time and just trying to be like, well, tell you what, like you can bring your little kid over and they can see like what a movie set looks like and everything.
That's so cool.
And then getting that done and then being like talking to the producers and like, so there's going to be a 5-year-old over here in about the next 10 minutes and just be really nice.
But this is what was needed to shut down the party.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like, there was another thing to where it's like a lawn crew, like they wouldn't do it. And so I wound up mowing the lawn because the guy, like he like, I could either sit there and say, okay, we just cut, start. Okay, we just started rolling, stop. We started doing this, stop, start. Yeah. It makes people get so mad so fast especially because you'll go from a cut that's 10 seconds long to 3 minutes of like rolling and they're like, there's nothing consistent. I'm like, welcome to production.
Yeah.
And so like, I remember I just put on my surveillance and just sat there and I just started like mowing and everything. But yeah, it's just nice too. And like, so that's kind of like the funny little odds and ends that comes with being a location manager and, making the production happen because a weed whacker can shut down effectively what is $100,000 day for, an entire production.
Wow,
and you think about like every single second costs money. It's like, okay. and it's like my job to make sure that there are no seconds that we are down, and also to have the Wi-Fi password. That's always the critical component.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I think too, to where it's just like something that I've been wanting to do too is just like more so highlighting like all the excellent places to shoot in Dallas.
Yeah.
Because like that's always the real cool things to do, is like that, you get to find these fun little parts of Dallas that you never knew were there. Be it like, underground Dallas, or, like old like West End or something like that, or it's like, all these like nice little, I don't know, these fun, unique little bits that are all over
you're like
Dallas.
the best tour guide possible for Dallas, because you know all of the ins and outs and all the little secret spots. It's not just the stuff that the tourism office puts out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I remember I even had like Amazon, they hit me up and they wanted to do like B-roll on Dallas, and they're like, we need you to come up with like 45 places that we need to film that are all like iconically Dallas. We need you to pass them on the permits and everything like that. And so like, shout out to D Castillo and the permits and special events. Thank you so much, D, for all of your patience.
No, the city of Dallas actually is very film friendly, and the city does a great job of just trying to work with productions and make sure things happen for them. They want things to actually happen.
Yeah, like we were shooting driveway.com like down Elm in like downtown, downtown Dallas. And so you're talking, and we had to shoot inside of a lane. And so I had to close 2 lanes, have like DPD there. I also had to like close down a whole bunch of like parking meters and everything like that. I had to work with like the LTV tower, which LTV tower was really cool, really great, super film friendly. It was literally a 90-second phone call. Like this was like weeks of me trying to find like a skyscraper that would like let us shoot outside of it. These long protracted emails with all of these like, big wig corporations that went nowhere. 90-second phone call with LTV towers, boom, done. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like, thank you. Because that's the pressure. That's like, that is the crazy pressure. When you have 5 days as a location scout, you have to produce. And if you don't produce, then you kind of feel like you're taking money out of like the producer's pocket, because you kind of feel like you're failing on a level, and you're like, well, I kind of have to charge you for a 6th day, because it's like, I haven't found it yet, but I wish I would have found it at this point. But you're not asking for something easy sometimes. But to your point, Tony, it was just like, Sam Sargento, of the Dallas police department, like super helpful on like helping me with like the traffic flow. Like, D was helping me a whole bunch with like getting the drone permit and everything figured out with all of that, because like the drone permit in downtown Dallas, it's not the easiest thing in the world. You have to like talk to the FAA and a whole bunch of other
your pilot has to really have their act together and know what they're doing.
Pilot also has to have $1 million of liability insurance. Heads up for anybody.
Which is actually not that expensive to get.
No, it's not that bad, but it does have to be a separate COI. It can't be wrapped up into the actual COI.
No, it can't be the production one.
Yeah, it has to be completely separate.
Yeah, because there are actually insurance policies that you can get where you could literally buy drone insurance by the hour.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so like that's kind of the fun parts of Dallas, is like discovering all the little tiny details and stuff like that, especially when you're like going around those skyscrapers. And like I was just doing a thing with Mark Cuban, and I was just like getting to find and look at all the coolest penthouses in Dallas, and I was just like, this is so cool. And like
keep those on file.
Well, and again, there's no bad day. Like anytime that I have like a bad day or a great day, I can always like, I love the fact that I have the contrast of working office jobs, of like being in like that unappreciated cubicle kind of life of like Excel sheets, looking at programmatic marketing and stuff like that. I used to do programmatic like digital marketing, and into like that kind of stuff, to where it's like you're checking out penthouses, you're working with like nice and kind people. Like I love all the people I get to meet. Like I love shaking the hands with all the people, and everyone's so nice and everyone's so kind, and it's just always a great experience overall, just like kind of being a location scout, and just like that, like even though like Dallas can be a little businessy sometimes, like a little more starch than you like, everyone overall is very, very film friendly, and like they're very courteous and they're very helpful so often. But did you have any other questions for me? I know you had a lot of questions. I was talking at length.
Yeah,
no,
I was gonna say,
I came up with like 20 in my head.
Yeah, what do you see as like next in your career? You can keep going, doing what you're doing. You started out wanting to be that commercial director, filmmaker, all kind of thing. You still have that aspiration, or are you really enjoying this moment and just going to continue doing this for a while?
I mean, I think like it's kind of funny that you bring that up because I remember I was like really like trying to look at like what's filling my creative cup because it's like I just moved into a new place and I've just been like painting it and like doing all these other kinds of things and I was working on a graphic novel and I was just like, I have not like held a camera in my hands in a hot minute, and I have not like directed something in a hot minute. I'd really like to do something on a small scale.
Yeah.
Because I remember immediately, like, you're like, oh, cool, like let's do this like indie short, and you're just like, bucko. You're just gonna just handle a 10-minute like indie like short, make it great. And I'm like just like off the bit, and I was like, let's do like a 1.5, 2-minute kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm working on like a project. I don't want to get too much into the details because I know sometimes I call it like dry firing, where like creatively you say what you're gonna do, which makes you feel like you've done it, and so then you don't actually do it kind of thing. So yeah, I am like working on trying to get something cooking as far as that goes, just to kind of like, again, to just express like my own kind of like creative language and everything like that, because I got into it because there's like I get to work with a lot of indie people like Kyle Montgomery. He's one of my good friends, as well as Judd Markson. He's a really great guy too, to where it's like he just did a great little short called Destroyer that he's working on and like is in post-production, and just seeing like all these really great creative people that I work with. And no, it's Judd Myers. His wife is Nicole Markson. Sorry, but just doing those kinds of things are always really great. And like, man, it's just like how supportive like so many of the interior film people are too. To where you go, I've got this thing. Who will work for free over a weekend? I will feed you. I'm sorry I can't pay you, kind of thing. I'll pay you best I can. Like I'll give gas money and stuff like that or something. That everyone's like, all right, let's throw down. And so it's really great. Like that it does have a internal supportive, community as well. Like, that people do want to make art, people do want to make cool things. And it's like, you even get to see like a lot of the more like indie stuff, like just kind of getting a better platform. I feel like in Dallas right now, like Film Soup, you and I both
absolutely.
that. Film Soup was such an awesome, like really cool, really creative way of doing something. For those who don't know, like Film Soup was showing not only like creativity through, film media and whatnot, but we also had like artists and everything there, and like people who like made art in general, like crafts and their own like kind of.
And there's like over 400 people there at a church.
The turnout was terrific. The turnout was so terrific that I remember I thought it just really shows like the thriving community that is here. And so often people like can say that Dallas is just a commercial place. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm like, there are a lot of people here who want to stay in Dallas, who think that, creative stories can be told. And because if you look at so many things that are just like shot in LA, you can shoot all those things in Dallas. It's just like you just have to be creative about it. I know like there's like a Ford commercial that's going to be closing the tunnel that's underneath Clyde Warren Park. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I'm not sure if that's going to be cooking still, but because those things can really throw some hinkies, into the whole like parts of Dallas, because like Dallas can get sort of clogged up really easily just because of our highway structure and such. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, like overall the indie scene is really good and it's very thriving in Dallas. Like even like your friend, Merced with his film that he just got the morning of. Like I think, people like him are just so integral into like the fabric that is the Dallas indie like creative like market. And like if any indie people are listening here, reach out to your Dallas film commission here. They're very very helpful.
Since I've been here, there really is there's a good group of talented indie filmmakers here. I'm looking forward to seeing that develop more as we move forward here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We're out of time for today.
Oh no!
But thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I know. I was like, is there any like lightning questions or anything like that? Do you need from me?
Well, one question, or it was going to be a question, but you answered it. But I was going to say like something that I observed as you were talking and giving your story was like being a location manager. Like you can't just say, "Oh, I do locations," and you prop up to a house, and then you're like, hey, I'm working on a commercial and this is the house. Like you have to like understand personality and then also understand production. And that goes to what you're saying is like, they want to drive a truck on the grass and parallel park it next to the house, but you need to know like I need to put these plywood plaques down or whatever.
Yeah,
and
you do have to have like a widespread knowledge of like what all the departments need and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like you can't neglect any department, or it's like you have to think of like place for hair and makeup, place for crafty.
Yeah.
Like, like I like crafty like has like such a special place in my heart. And it's like if I can, I try to keep them out of garages best I can, especially during the summers. But it's like there's a profound love in everything that I do, and just like trying to take care of like just the creative efforts, like even if it's from a Fritos commercial to something like that's a cool creative like narrative and everything. Like yeah, so like, yeah, I love seeing it. I do feel like right now, like, is kind of a new renaissance for like Dallas overall, as far as like, production, everything like that. Fort Worth too, like, they're chunking things along. I'm a big, sayer of like that water rises all boats. Where it's like, if Fort Worth is doing well, it's got to make Dallas do well. Dallas is doing well, it's got to make Fort Worth do well. And it's like, it's all about the like film community writ large.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, it's obvious you love what you do.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
We're happy to have you in the market here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Don't go anywhere.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to check me out, I'll go to finditfilmit.co. Finditfilmit.co.
There you go.
There you
Well,
go.
we're gonna say like any last words. Finditfilmit.co.
Yeah, finditfilmit.co, and then I also have a production rental supply company that's productionoutfitters.co as well, because I know that I can only do this for so long. So that's my other kind of iron in the fire. That if I go into retirement, I'll have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so overall, that's just kind of what we're doing, and and if you're listening to this and you're young or something like that, just know that a lot of the stuff is gumption based, and to reach out to communities. People are a lot nicer and a lot more understanding than I think we give them credit for, and they've all been there before, and they're more than happy to help you. So
yeah, hard work and motivation goes a long way.
Yes, hard work and motivation, and just showing that you have a brain for it. And if you want locations, please have a strong creative idea. Pinterest is your best friend. That will help you and me in the long run.
Love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate the podcast.
Yeah.